They actually have Dogmatica and, of course, Wannabe showing us that the beautiful Dinomorphia get a new power-up. Big 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button, smash it so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. Yes, this is Albazoa and Friends actually taking down a pretty decent top-sized top 8 locals out here. Now, trust me when I say this, being able to Nightmare Corruptor Ibly, your opponent on the side here as well, is really, really fun. The fact that this deck has multi-stages of things that you'll be able to bring to the table here, in basically to cover multiple matchups. Also, I mean, Albazoing your opponent, you know, with a Nightmare Corruptor Ibly on their side of the field, it's not going to be a fun time. I actually think that might be one of the worst case scenarios that I could actually find myself in my dueling career. So we have triple copies of Dogmatica Ecclesia the Virtuous. We have 2 copies of Fleur-de-Lis with 1 Maximus. We have triple copies of Droll Lockbird. We have 2 copies of Nightmare Corruptor Ibly with 2 copies of Albazoa. We have 1 White Knight with 1 copy of White Relic. We have triple copies of Signet Mining with 2 copies of the Dogmatica Calamity. We have 2 copies of the Dogmatica Scaber, and then triple copies of the Dogmatica Matrix. We also have triple copies of Nadir Servant because, you know, being able to set up wind is pretty good. We have triple copies of Pre-Preparation Rites. Triple copies of Ultimate Slayer with your 2 Dogmatica Punishments. We have 1 Schism, and then of course we have triple copies of Solemn Judgment. And then we have 1 copy of Frigette, 1 copy of Bucephalus 2 with 1 Secure Garden. We have 1 Almirage with 1 Aggregator, 2 copies of Herald with your 1 Titaniclad, 1 Garuda. We have triple Anitis, 1 Winda, 1 Apcalone, and 1 Cyberdark End Dragon. And then of course we have triple copies of Little Turtle. We have 1 Arby's Feather Duster, triple copies of Herald of the Abyss, 2 Lightning Storm, triple Secret Village, and triple copies of Evenly Matched here, wrapping up Albazoa, Nightmare Corruptor Ibly, anti-meta shenanigans. And once again, it goes to prove, like, you know, what you can kind of spin your opponent out of in terms of control and actually be able to win the game. Next up here, we have Dinomorphia with a good old Wannabe out here, actually. Wannabe gives you the ability to excavate during the end phase for a trap card to laugh your opponent. We also got Dinomorphia Intact in here. When a monster effect is activated and you control a Dinomorphia card, pay half your life points. Any battle damage you take for the rest of this turn becomes half your life points at the time you activate it, and then also negate that activation if you do destroy that card. Hey, you just want to start losing infinite amounts of your life points divisible by 2. Yeah, it's quite hilarious. This prevents you from actually losing the game. And of course, you get to play Trap Track in here now as well. So we have triple copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. We got triple copies of Diplos with triple copies of Therisia. We have 1 copy of the Lord of the Heavenly Prison with 1 Misk. We have 2 copies of Wannabe with 2 copies of Deck Lockdown. We have 1 Fossil Dig with triple copies of Pot of Duality. We have 1 copy of Alert, 1 copy of Brute, triple copies of Domain, triple copies of Frenzy with 2 copies of Intact. We have 2 copies of Sonic with 1 Eradicator. We have 2 copies of Ferret Flames with triple copies of Solemn Judgment. We have 2 Soul of the Supreme King, and then we have 2 copies of Trap Track. Then down here in the next trick, we have 1 Lingaribo, 1 Dolka with 1 Arc Rebellion. We have 1 Psyche and Punisher with your 1 Crystal Wing. We have 1 Crystal Clear Wing, so you'll have access to either of them. It's kind of interesting. We have 1 Zark. We have 1 Predapower Fusion Dragon with your 1 Stealth Green, 2 copies of Rexstrom, triple copies of course, our friend Kengrina, and 1 copy of the Brave Eyes Pendulum Dragon. Then we have 2 copies of Droll Lockbird, 1 Lord of the Heavenly Prison, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 2 Anti-Scam Fragrance, 1 DDV, 2 copies of Dimensional Barrier, triple Evenly Matched, 1 Ice Dragon's Prison, 1 Imperial Iron Wall, and 1 copy of Waking the Dragon here. Wrapping up your list, I do like the fact this deck has access to DDV and Eradicator Epidemic Virus, just because Trap Track actually exists. Like, you gotta appreciate the fact that, like, the extra synergy levels that you're able to mess around with here are actually that good. Next up here we have Crystal Beast. Wow. We are actually playing Sight Frame Overlord in here. So this is just basically... you're going to try to combo up and then get to as many lines of play as you can. You can really think like all of the Crystal Beast cards for actually you can think all of the engines for allowing this deck to actually come together and do its thing. Also, I mean, the Valiance cards in here do add that extra layer of sauce that actually is incredible. So we have triple copies of Sapphire Pegasus with 1 Cobalt Eagle. We have 1 Ruby Carbuncle with 2 copies of the Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon with 1 regular Rainbow Dragon. We have 1 Spriggan's Rocky with 1 copy of Brothers. We have 1 Space Rock Shock with triple Ash. We have triple Gamma with 1 Driver. We have 1 Regulus with 1 Cyberstein. We have triple copies of the Noble Knights Shield Bearer. We have triple copies of Pot of Prosperity with triple copies of Talents. You have 1 Feather Duster with your triple copies of Awakening the Crystal Ultimates, triple Crystal Bond with triple copies of the Rainbow Bridge of the Heart, 1 Call by the Grave with triple Rainbow Bridge, triple Foolish Burial Goods with 2 Crossout Designator, 1 copy of the Shinra Bonsho and 1 copy of the Wyson. We have 1 copy of the Tally-Ho Spriggans with your 1 copy of Cyframe Circuit, a triple Imperm with your 1 Evenly Matched, 1 Miracle, 1 Rainbow Bridge of Salvation, 1 Conclave, and 1 Cyframe Overlord. And then we have 1 copy of Stardust Dragon, 1 Excel Synchro, 1 Baron with your 1 Omega. We have 1 Platinum Gadget with 1 Lambda, 1 Exterio, 1 Giant Sprite, 1 Redor with 1 Lightning Cheetery, 1 Dugaris, 1 Gargantuan X, 1 Merrymaker, and 2 copies of Champion Sargass. And then we have 2 copies of Space Rock, triple copies of the Droll and Lockbird, triple copies of Lightning Storm, 1 Necro Valley, 1 Zombie World, 2 copies of Evenly Matched, and triple copies of Dimensional Barrier here, wrapping up your Spriggan's Crystal Beast full combo pile. Like, this is actually very cool. Next up here, we have some Fallen of Albaz shenanigans. Honestly, I have loved to see the different ideas that people are bringing to the table for Fallen of Albaz, and just like the bare minimum that you kind of have to include in this deck in order to get it to work. And this build has access to Quem and to the Albion. That was all you really needed to pick up to be able to play the deck. And and of course the Luluwal. So one-ofs. Like, I understand that, like, people like, I can't really afford this, but like, if you've already got the already existing core, I mean, Blazing Cartesia was way more to be able to already build into this deck. I mean, Lubellions are already hurting wallets out here as well. So we have 1 copy of Albion, the Shrouded Dragon, triple copies of Aluber with 2 copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. We have 2 copies of Blazing Cartesia with your 1 Magna Hut. We have 1 Sarnier with 1 Tragedy, 2 copies of Effect Veil with triple copies of Fallen of Albaz. We have 1 Guiding Quem with 1 Bysteel Lubellion. We have 2 McCourier with 1 Dark Magician, triple copies of Branded Fusion with 1 Branded in Red. We have 1 Branded Loss with triple Branded Opening, 1 Call by the Grave with 2 copies of Fusion Deployment, 1 Gold Sarcophagus with triple copies of Super Polymerization. We have 1 Branded Banishment with 1 Retribution and 2 copies of Infinite Permanence. Down in the next trick, you have the 1 Lulu Walth, your 1 copy of Rinbroom, 1 Dark Dragoon with 1 Mud, 2 copies of Mirjay with 2 Lubellion. We have, 2 Masquerade, 1 Lubellion, 1 copy of Granganala with 1 copy of Garuda, your 1 Albion, 2 copies of the Albion, and 1 copy of Alba Lanitus. Then we have 1 Space Rock, 1 copy of Spriggan's Kit with 2 Allure Darkness. The fact we're actually citing Allure, that we can get away with it, is kind of cool. We have 1 Branded High Spirits, triple Crossout Designator, 2 Dark Roller No More, 1 Theater of the Branded, triple copies of Nadir Servant, and 1 copy of Evenly Matched here, wrapping up your Despia deck. And there's a lot of cool innovations down here in the side deck. This actually allows this deck to transform into a differently functioning build and actually be able to function, and that's kind of cool. Last we have for you is Purely. Hey, look, see, we're still doing Rainbow Bridge of Salvation plays here. The fact that, Rainbow Bridge of Salvation toggles for the street here, which is a one-of, it's actually pretty good. And of course, the Cobalt Eagle being the additional discard fodder here so that you can just go ahead and do full Purely plays. And then, of course, Vanity's Fiend, the culprit of how a lot of people are going to lose a lot of games, guaranteed. So we have triple copies of Ash Blossom and Joy Spring, triple copies of Droll and Lockbird with 2 Effect Veiler. We have 2 copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit with triple copies of Regular Purely. We have triple copies of Purely Lily with 1 copy of Cobalt Eagle. We have 1 Called by the Grave with 1 Talents and 1 Thrust. We have triple copies of My Friend Purely with triple copies of Delicious Memory. We have triple copies of Happy Memory with 1 Purely Street. We have triple Pretty Memory, triple copies of Sleepy Memory, and then we have 1 Leap and triple copies of Rainbow Bridge of the Unfun. Then we have 1 IP with 1 Unicorn, 1 copy of Underworld Gods with 1 Princess Sprite, your 1 Assemble Blue, 1 Downer Magician, 1 Zeus, 2 copies of Nor, 1 Happiness, 2 Plump, 1 Little Happiness, and 2 copies of Beauty. And then we have 2 Vanity Scene, 2 copies of the Corticata, triple copies of Gamma, 1 copy of Driver, 1 Feather Duster, 2 Cosmic Cyclone, 2 Exceed Encore, and 2 copies of Rivalry of the Warlords here, wrapping up your chunk of deck profiles for today. So what do you guys think about these interesting goodies? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. There's so many interesting things that have been happening out here in the very early stages of the metagame. So, feel free to tell me what you guys are thinking, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace out. Patrons, Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.